Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary. Want to welcome everyone this morning. Welcome to everyone watching online or through our legislative YouTube channel. And with that, Secretary, please take the roll.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Here. Assemblywoman Cohen. Here. Assemblywoman Considine.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gallant.
Here.
Assemblyman Gray. Assemblywoman Hanson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblywoman Mosca.
Here.
Assemblywoman Newby.
Here.
Assemblyman Orentlicker.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Present.
Assemblyman Urick. Chair Miller.
Here. And please mark the Assemblyman present as he's walking in the door. So all members are present. We'll go ahead and begin. Again, just want to welcome everyone. Just a few reminders before we get started. Please turn off any electronic devices that could be disruptive during with bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff during the hearing. Also let everyone know we will have a public comment section at the end of the hearing. Today we have two bills to hear. Our first bill will be Assembly Bill 17, which will be presented from Chief Judge Kevin Higgins from the Sparks Justice Court. It is a measure that revises provisions relating to penalties for driving under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance. And then also we have John McCormick from the Administrative Office of the Courts. So with that, I would like to open the hearing on Assembly Bill 17. And when you are ready, please begin.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is John McCormick, John, last name McCormick, McCormick. And as indicated, I'm the Assistant Court Administrator at the Nevada Supreme Court's AOC. And today, Judge Higgins and I are here to present AB 17. This is a two-section bill. The first section eliminates the requirement that when a person is performing community service related to a conviction for a first or second misdemeanor DUI, that while performing that service, they must be dressed in distinctive garb that identifies the person as having violated the provisions of NRS 484C110 or 484C120. So those are the two alcohol and drug DUI statutes. So that is all the bill does, is remove that distinctive garb requirement.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Higgins. I'm the Chief Judge of the Sparks Justice Court. I'm coming up on 20 years as the Judge of the Justice Court. In a prior life, I was a Deputy Attorney General and spent many hours in here with Chairman Anderson being educated as what we should be doing at the Attorney General's office. So it's a pleasure to be back. On behalf of the Judges Association, the Lower Court Judges Association, we're asking what we think is a technical correction to NRS 484C 110 and 120, which requires persons doing community service for DUIs to wear a distinctive garb identifying themselves as having been convicted of a DUI. Our problem is that post-COVID, it's almost impossible to arrange community service. Many of us had community service programs. They ran out of our courthouses or the county or the city. Those were closed during COVID and haven't reopened. The Washington County Sheriff's Office no longer has an out-of-custody community service program. We participated with the Sparks Municipal Court in a park cleanup program that has not been reinstituted post-COVID. So we rely on community partners to do community service. So it's the Boys and Girls Club, it's the food bank, the Humane Society, and we have really no way to enforce the rule that requires these people to wear distinctive garb. We're just happy if they can find somewhere to do community service. And I usually get a blank look when I sentence somebody and I say, do you go to a church? If you do, you can do it through there. Are you involved in Little League? Are you a coach? Are you involved in any community programs? Or do you live somewhere with a general improvement district? We take almost anything for community service these days. And the problem is with some of the partners that we use, they won't take people for DUIs anyway. So many places like the Humane Society will only take community service if somebody's there on a traffic ticket. So we're stretching. We allowed people a lot of time to do community service during the situation. And we're to a point where we can't enforce the rule. And it says shall. Not all of us are quite sure what distinctive garb even is. It does seem an archaic turn of phrase. I understand the intent behind it, but I have no authority to tell the Methodist Church that if somebody's going to be there on cleanup day, that they have to somehow have something to wear that has them. It's a law we can't really enforce with the situation today. At the risk of making a comment about the requirement in the first place, I did a drug court for a long time. I do bail hearings all the time. We release people with pretrial services, and what we've been told repeatedly is that for a low-level, low-offense offender, to the extent that you do anything except the minimal supervision, it's counterproductive. So if you have a first-time person that's gotten caught with a little bit of drugs and they've been in court before, but you're making them show up to test every day, searches, seizures, really the less enforcement you can do is the best, because you cause people to have lack of respect for the law. You don't get to where you think you're going. John and I talked about Hester Prynne briefly, if all of us remember, those of us that were paying attention in high school, and I can assure Assemblywoman Hanson, I went to high school with Assemblywoman Hanson, that I was paying attention in Mrs. Green's class when we read Seven Gables, and so I know what a red letter A is. Not everybody did, but I understand the intent. I think it was a good intent to identify these people, and whether community shaming works is probably a discussion for another day, but we have a practical problem with not being able to enforce the law the way it's written. So we're just asking that the mandatory requirement forcing community service providers to have these distinctive garbs on hand would be eliminated from the law. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and Judge, I only have one critical problem with your presentation. Hester Prynne was actually in the Scarlet Letter, not in the...
But to the chair, Kevin Higgins, I guess Mrs. Hanson now knows whether I was paying attention.
Whether you were
Mrs.
paying
Green's
attention or not.
class.
Okay, thank you with that. And so I would, are you open for questions in at this time? Okay, so we have a question from Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Thank you. When I read this bill last night, I was like, are you kidding me? I was shocked. I wanted to know what the Scarlet Letter, distinctive garb looked like. That's immediately where I went. So, but there is a lot to unpack. So, I've already made it clear I can't believe we do this. We do so many good things, and then we just, I can't believe you said like a group like the Humane Society wouldn't let people with DUIs volunteer. What are the Humane Society? They have just so many volunteers. They can say people who made a mistake. Okay. Anyways, I'd like to know what the distinctive garb looks like.
Thank you, John McCormick for the record. The distinctive garb depends on the jurisdiction, depends on the entity. It could be a T-shirt that says, I violated the provisions of 484C.110. There is no statutory guidance on what exactly the distinctive garb is, aside from identifying the individual as having violated the provisions of the statute.
That'll do.
That'll do. Okay, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I got a little twisted in your presentation because you first spoke about DUI, and then you said that this was not enforceable with any community service. And so I think I need clarity. Is this cleaning this up, that no one doing community service is to wear anything distinctive, or just folks for DUI? Because I read it and I thought this was all DUI, and then you kind of tangent, and then I sort of lost myself.
Thank you, Assemblywoman John McCormick, for the record. The current statutory requirement in AB 17 is a requirement that they have distinctive garb when performing community service for a DUI conviction. To the best of my knowledge, there's no other statutory requirement that people performing current community service wear distinctive garb as having violated provisions of anything.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. So the only thing that I would be concerned about is safety attire. If they are out in working on the street or parallel to a road or someplace where they could be interacting with vehicles, do you ensure that people are at least dressed in high resolution things if they're doing community service that is could put them in harm's way?
Kevin Higgins. That is always the practice when we still had programs that did roadside cleanups. I'm not sure, at least in northern Nevada, we do in this situation anymore, but everybody wore an orange vest. The thought was an orange vest with NRS 484C110 on it, a distinctive garb for the purpose of the statute. But yes, they do wear those safety. Most of our folks are inside at the food bank, the food bank only does nonviolent offenses. That's where my tangent went. They only do nonviolent offenses, so they will take DUIs, but they won't take domestic violence. But yes, they would be required to do that, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblyman Ornlicker?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I think it is an important step forward. I'd just like to pick up on your comments about the archaic nature of the public shaming and the identification. You referenced the Scarlet Letter, and that makes sense. But it's a little bit different from what we heard last week about the value of public shaming in the setting of people who pay for sex. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about that. Do you think public shaming generally is bad, or maybe it does have a role in some settings, not others?
Kevin Higgins. I guess I can speak from my own experience from being a judge and running a drug court that, at the risk of putting people into categories, I think the proverbial soccer mom that has her first DUI, there is nothing you're going to do to her that's going to make her more ashamed than the fact she has to come see me. And she has to tell her family, or the soccer dad. We have soccer dads too. And the only time in their court system is a DUI they have, and it's the worst experience of their entire life, and the victim impact panel generally almost does them in, and it's horrible for them. The flip side, we have people who don't care at all. So sitting them in the victim impact panel has no effect on them. They don't have any concern for the rest of the public, and I'm not sure the thought that they'd have to wear an orange vest that said NRS 44C110 on it, that's not going to faze them at all, and I don't think they're thinking when they're leaving bullies after too many cocktails that I might have to wear an orange vest if this happens. So I think I understand the original intent, but I don't think practically in this case it serves that purpose. Now, I understand, I think if you have to stand on the side of the street with a sign that says I was arrested for soliciting prostitution, I think that's a whole different sort of situation here where we're talking, for the most part, your everyday citizens that have made one bad decision and they're already feeling at the lowest point in their lives having to deal with it. So I don't think it's appropriate in this case, and I think the other it may very well be, but I'm not particularly aware of that bill, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Our next question is from Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assemblyman Orlichter, I'm right there with you. I don't know, sir, that I agree with your line of thought there. I mean, I think the soccer moms give a whole lot more care about what they think of each other than the John soliciting prostitution, and also the ramifications of driving under the influence are far more reaching than a guy soliciting a prostitute. As far as the community at large is responsible. But I had a question, but I think the Assemblyman covered it. But I still think when you go into that second time, maybe that first time they're not thinking about it, but the next time they're thinking about making that same bad decision, that, excuse me, I'm sure that'll definitely be forefront in their mind that they have to wear that orange vest again.
Did you have a question, Assemblyman?
No, the Assemblyman covered it.
Assemblywoman Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. It's good to see you both, and go Railroaders. And I must testify that Judge Higgins was a great student. I think he just had a brain blip for a moment about the Scarlet Letter. I just needed to clarify, I think you said first offense, that the garb wouldn't be worn, or we're saying period. There's no garb. I'm not familiar, fortunately, personally, with the statute. So if you're convicted the first time, do you do community service your second time?
For the record, John McCormick, currently the statute is, you do, both the first and second conviction are misdemeanors. And the first one, order the person to perform not less than 48 hours, but not more than 96 hours, so it's mandatory on the first one. For a second offense, fine the person not less than 750 nor more than 1,000, or order the person to perform an equivalent number of hours of community service. So, excuse me, the first offense, it's mandatory. The second, it can go to offset the mandatory fine.
Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up to that.
Proceed.
Thank you. So second time, they wouldn't have to wear the garb either?
Currently, the way the bill reads, it would remove that requirement from both
Period.
iterations.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for responding to those questions. Not seeing any additional questions, we will move into testimony. So with that, I will open it up for testimony. Anyone interested in testifying in support of Assembly Bill 17, you will have up to 2 minutes to offer your support. I will provide the phone number right now for those that wish to call in. It is 1-669-900-6833, and the meeting ID today is 851-720-83377. And so with that, we can go ahead. Again, just a reminder too, please make sure that you say and spell your name clearly for the record. Please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Madam Chair and members of the committee, Leah Case, Leacase, here today on behalf of NAMI, Nevada, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Nevada chapter. We are speaking here in support of AB 17 just because it removes some of the stigma that we see associated with mental illness, including substance use disorders and folks who have alcohol use disorders. So that's our support on this measure, is just in an effort to decrease stigma and hopefully get more folks into treatment and prevent these from happening in the first place. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of AB 17? Not seeing anyone. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 17, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 17, please press *9 now.
Good morning. Jim Hoffman, representing Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. We support this bill and we're thankful to the judge for bringing it to the committee's attention. Our position is that the most important part of the sentence for a first-time DUI offender is the community service. It's getting out in the community, it's working to repair the damage that they've caused, it's developing good habits of thinking about other people. We believe this issue with the clothing is secondary to that. And so as the judge described, there's a practical problem where we can't get both. We believe we should focus on having more community service. Therefore, we support this bill. Thank you.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 17, please press *9 now. Chair, there are no other callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you, Broadcasting. With that, I will open it up for anyone wishing to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 17. Is there anyone here in Carson City? Not seeing anyone. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 17, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 17, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you, Broadcasting. So then I'll open it up for anyone wishing to testify in neutral of Assembly Bill 17. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in neutral? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone broadcasting on the line that would like to testify in neutral?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 17, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 17, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, then I will invite the bill presenters back up if you'd like to make any final statements. Okay, thank you for that. Then I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 17. Thank you. The next bill that we have today, and I don't know if our presenter is here yet, so I'm going to ask everyone to just pause for a few minutes. She's running over from Ways and Means, so let's just give her, I'm not recessing because I don't want anyone going anywhere. We're just going to give her a moment to get here. Okay, committee, in the meantime, we do have a committee BDR that I would like to introduce. It is BDR 300, which provides for the issuance of certain orders and warrants related to the protection of certain persons. So with this, again, remember that this is not a vote for the bill to proceed in any way other than for it to become a bill so that it can be referred. So with that, do I have any questions? No questions? I will take a motion now for Assembly Bill 300.
Motion.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Assemblywoman Cohen. With that, I will go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you for that. I now see that our Assemblywoman is here. So as she is approaching, we'll give her a few minutes to settle in. Assemblywoman Bacchus is presenting AB 125, and this revises provisions to public safety. So Assemblywoman, and I see that you have a number of supporters here in the room. So with that, I'll give you a few minutes to get settled, and then when you're ready, please begin, okay?
Thank you so much, Chair, and hardworking members of the Committee on Judiciary. My name, can you guys hear me okay? It feels so far away. My name is Shay Bacchus. I have the pleasure of serving in Assembly District 37. As some of you may already know, I am also a citizen of Cherokee, meaning I am an enrolled tribal member. While I was born and raised in Vegas, I spent my summers in eastern Oklahoma on allotted tribal land. I also graduated with a certificate of Indian law from the Arizona State University. Today, it is my pleasure to present Assembly Bill 125, which is intended to addressing missing and murdered Indigenous persons. AB 125 is intended to ensure that Indigenous persons who go missing are captured in the National Crime Information Center. NCIC is a computerized index of criminal justice information, including missing persons, that is accessible by federal, state, and local law enforcement, as well as some tribal law enforcement. Prior to diving into the bill, I'd like to spend a few minutes to discuss jurisdiction between tribes, federal government, and state government when it comes to crimes occurring in Indian country. But please remember that when a person goes missing, that is not necessarily yet a crime. Nevada law recognizes that our Indian tribes within our state possess the power of self-government to enact their own laws, regulations, and ordinances, and enforcing them by their own tribal courts in accordance with the rules and procedures. So when a crime occurs within the reservation boundaries or tribal trust lands located partially or wholly within the state of Nevada, 3 inquiries must be made to determine who has jurisdiction. 1, who is the offender, who is the victim, and what was the crime. If the offender is Indian and the victim is Indian, the tribe has jurisdiction, with exception to all major crimes defined in 18 U.S.C. Section 1153, which includes murder, kidnapping, assault resulting in serious bodily injury, robbery, and other crimes specifically listed therein. For these defined major crimes, federal jurisdiction exists. Jurisdiction is similar for crimes committed by an Indian against a non-Indian victim, with the exception of crimes that are neither provided under the Major Crimes Acts or in tribal law. Then there can be federal jurisdiction that imposes enforcement of state laws as provided for under the Assimilative Crimes Act, codified in 18 U.S.C. Section 13. If the offender is non-Indian and the victim is Indian, then the tribe has jurisdiction over the non-Indian for domestic violence, dating violence, or violation of protective orders when the non-Indian defendant resides or is employed in Indian country or is a spouse or intimate partner of an Indian residing in Indian country. For all other crimes, there is federal jurisdiction. If the offender is non-Indian and the victim is non-Indian, then the state would have jurisdiction. The Department of Interior openly recognizes for decades Native American and Alaskan Native communities have struggled with high rates of assault, abduction, and murder of women. Community advocates describes the crisis as a legacy of generations of government policies of forced removal, land seizures, and violence inflicted on Native peoples. When looking at missing and murdered cases, data shows that Native American and Alaskan Native women make up a significant portion of missing and murdered individuals. According to a 2008 report titled Violence Against American Indian and Alaskan Native Women and the Criminal Justice Response, what is known, national rates of homicide victimization against American Indian and Alaskan Native women are second to those of their African American counterparts. However, the federal government has recognized that reports indicate that there is no reliable count on how many Native women go missing or killed each year. Specifically, researchers have found that women are often misclassified as Hispanic or Asian or other racial categories on missing person forms, and that thousands have been left off of federal missing persons. I recall sitting in an MMIW seminar hosted by CSG West in 2019 and looking at a map of the United States highlighting various MMIW cases. I noticed Nevada in a different color and asking why that was. The answer was because there was no data. At that point, I realized that we had to do better as a state to attempt to capture this data. But most importantly, we also had to find a way to address this crisis. For the last year, I noticed that I noticed that it was not only Indian women and children who go missing, but also young males. Frequently, you will see a shared Facebook posting of missing Indigenous persons and Indigenous community pages. While Facebook can be effective, we need to do better than social media when Indigenous persons go missing. Missing Indigenous persons are not a silo in Indian country. An exemplar of this is Anna Scott, who is a member of Pyramid Lake Indian Reservation, whose body was discovered on February 3rd, 2022, in the trunk of a car set on fire on I-580 between Reno and Carson. Over a year and a month, her murder has not been resolved. When 15-year-old Nomi Armendariz went missing from Snow Mountain Reservation, which for those that don't know is right on the border of the northwest part of Las Vegas, close to my district, tribal police and FBI worked together to get the public notified of this missing teenager, and she ultimately was found safe a few days later. At the time a person goes missing, a crime may not have yet happened, but we know that time is of the essence, and such person needs to be reported as missing. Traditionally, when there is a missing person, it follows with an investigation. And I believe this is where the mindset of jurisdictional hurdles creates a delay in ensuring that missing persons get inputted into a national database. While some tribal police officers have access to the National Crime Information Center, not all tribes have tribal police or an CIC. Typically, tribes will rely upon the BIA or FBI for report of missing persons. Currently, there is one BIA agent designated to address missing and murdered Indigenous persons in 3 different states, including Nevada. Assembly Bill 125 is a hope to provide additional resources to ensure that when an Indian goes missing, it can be reported to state or local law enforcement for the purpose of input into NCIC. This bill does not seek for local or state law enforcement to go onto the tribal lands to do an investigation, as Nevada respects the tribe's sovereignty. Currently, Nevada law provides that a law enforcement agency is to accept a report of a missing child submitted to it. The agency is to enter such information into NCIC under NRS 432.200. This law contemplates that a law enforcement agency may or may not have jurisdiction over where the child went missing. Nevada law also provides for law enforcement to receive a report of a missing person over the age of 18 years of age and to enter that information into NCIC pursuant to NRS 48500. Section 3 of AB 125 permits law enforcement to accept a report of an adult who goes missing from an Indian reservation or colony that is located in part or whole in Nevada and to enter that information into NCIC. NRS 233A.260, subsection 4, sets forth that each state agency that communicates with Indian tribes on a regular basis shall designate a tribal liaison who reports directly to the office of the head of that agency and provides the duties for that tribal liaison. Section 2 of AB 125 provides that the tribal liaison for the Department of Public Safety is also to maintain communication related to missing or murdered Indigenous persons between the department and Indian tribes and tribal communities in our state, tribal organizations, urban Indian organizations, other tribal liaisons designated by state agencies, and non-governmental entities that provide services to women who are members of Indian tribes. Lastly, Section 4 includes a provision for peace officers to receive training in taking reports and handling of cases related to missing Indigenous persons. These peace officers are not tribal police, as Nevada law does not govern training over a separate sovereign police department. While I understand that most already know how to take reports, the importance of this training could be understanding the importance of tribal sovereignty and navigating working with tribal officers with respect to the reporting and other investigation that would fall within the jurisdiction of the law enforcement agency that may not be within the tribal reservation borders. If this language is too broad, I am open to drafting a narrow scope for those who take reports and/or investigate missing persons. I also want to thank those that came in. I apologize that I was late. I was sitting in Ways and Means and then jumped down here. So I really, truly appreciate everyone that came out to support this bill, as it's really important. With that, I am ready to take questions from the committee.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Yes. And just so you know, you came rather quickly, so you were absolutely fine. Our first question comes from Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Assemblywoman, for this important bill. And when I was reading it, I think I understand, but if you could just reiterate on the record how this helps, what is the process that this then adds to?
Thank you. Shay Backus for the record, by and through Chair to Assemblywoman Mosca.
Please go direct.
Thank you. Basically, how I kind of saw this bill being an aid is adding that extra layer. Right now, we have tribes with their own tribal police who obviously are able to take reports for those that have NCIC or connection to the BIA or FBI. The problem is we also have tribes that may not necessarily have tribal officers, and a lot of tribes actually do not have access to NCIC directly. And so when I saw this as just that extra layer to immediately get a missing person's name into the national database. Because we live in a state where, and I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of bills this session about human trafficking. I mean, it is a pandemic in our state. And if a woman goes missing, let's say an economic development center for a tribe is a gas station, a trucking station. I know there's issues at trucking stations where people do go missing. If that person ends up in Las Vegas, if they're not in a national database and a cop runs across that person and runs their name, they're not going to be in the missing database. This is a key to get that person in there as soon as possible, because the sooner we put someone who's missing into a national database and someone comes across them, the more likelihood we could prevent other crimes from occurring.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Our next question is from Assemblywoman Newby.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for the presentation of this very necessary bill. Section 3, I noticed that it refers to accepting a report of a person who's 18 years or older. What's the remedy for someone who is less than 18 years old?
Shay Backus for the record. Thank you for your question, Assemblywoman Newby. I didn't know this. I didn't know this had existed until I submitted my bill, and I, of course, did it for adults and children. But I had learned during this that we already have a provision under NRS. I think it's like, let me get it to you. I would think I would have it already memorized, but we do have a provision in state law already, NRS 480.500, which already contemplates that law enforcement can take a report of a missing person under the age of 18, and jurisdiction is not of a concern. And I kind of want to touch on that because for me it's a visual, and I explain this bill to people to really understand it. The issue would be, for example, myself. I live in Las Vegas. Say if, and I don't want to use missing persons, but say I need to report a crime. Someone broke into my house. And I called Nye County. Nye County would be like, you're crazy, you need to call LVMPD. And so that's where these jurisdictional mindsets get. And so we need to take that down when it comes to missing, reported missing individuals. Thank you for your question.
Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this today. Truly, I think it's such a critical issue, and thank you for everyone that showed up. I don't want to say looking forward to your testimony because I think it will be heart-wrenching, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here to support. My question is on the training. So on the last page on Section C, it says we must require training for peace officers, as you said, on those taking of reports. But I noticed on page 3, so this is Section 4, subsection 3, there's another section on training that says that there's a requirement for 12 hours of continuing education in all of these topics. And I just wondered whether or not adding that missing and murdered Indigenous women usually, but persons training might be good there as well, and whether or not that is something that you had considered.
Thank you, Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch, for your question. Shay Backus for the record. I am open. This is an area where I've had probably the most discussion with people that may appear today in opposition of this bill, is I am definitely open to the best way to make training efficient and not necessarily overburdensome for those that may not be in this field. And so if this is a better place that folks believe it to be, I would always be open to that change. Thank you for your question.
Proceed.
And just as a follow-up to that, I know we're not necessarily putting it in statute, but I'd just like to know who would be involved in that training, because I think it's really important that members of the community are involved in putting that training together. And so I just wondered if you'd given any thought to that.
Shay Backus for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman. I've taken a lot of thought into this section because this is probably the most questionable section, just because it's putting burdens on individuals. But with respect to those who would be doing the training, I mean, in order to get this moving into the right direction, I'm at the point I'd be fine with like a little computerized. I think one of the fiscal notes, which this committee doesn't obviously consider the fiscal notes, I saw someone do like an online webinar. I would be fine with that. I can't believe I basically gave you guys federal Indian Law 101 on criminal jurisdiction in less than 2 minutes. That's a very complicated area, but there's ways to do it. And I want to be efficient, but I want to also make sure people are aware of the tribe's sovereignty, but also that we're addressing this crisis and how there could be an interplay. I had talked to a prior FBI agent who had indicated at one point there was a crisis, I think like in the 80s or early 90s, where they had a task force so that they could work together. So I am open to any ideas. I don't want to make it too overburdensome for our departments, but yet want to make sure that there is some sort of training to respect the sovereignty and make sure we're addressing the concern at issue.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing the bill and for the presentation. So we've talked in this committee about trafficking, and of course we hear a lot about that. And we have also talked about, just in general in the community, about missing Indigenous girls and women especially. And I never thought about the where those two come together. So do we have any idea how many women from other states are coming, how many Indigenous women from other states are trafficked into Nevada?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Cohen, Shea Backus, for the record. That I do not know. And the problem is with a lot of the data that does get entered into databases, there tends to be errors. Obviously, Indigenous women sometimes could be noted down as white, Asian, Hispanic, may not be correctly identified. It has been a struggle. And on that end, I mean, obviously that's probably a little bigger than our purview here, but there's also been a big push for the federal government, who is supporting also this as well, to be addressing these concerns. But that would obviously be whatever state they're coming in from, if their information gets into the database and then they get arrested here. But that'd be interesting. I'm actually meeting with some people that deal with NCIC later today, and I'll make sure to see if they can answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, for your presentation and for answering those questions. With that, I don't see any additional questions, so I'd like to open it up for testimony. So anyone here in the room, again, you will have up to 2 minutes to testify. We're going to start with support. In support of Assembly Bill 125, we ask that you please say and spell your name so that we can make sure it's recorded in the minutes correctly. And so we will start here in Carson City before opening the phone lines. Anyone here testifying in support of AB 125, please begin.
My name's Ernie Adler, and I represent the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe. Just a matter of background, I originally came to Nevada in 1976 to work for Nevada Indian Legal Services. Following that, I went to work with the Attorney General's office, where I was chief criminal deputy and dealt with a number of Indian law issues. And then in the 90s, I served as a tribal judge with the Fallon Paiute tribe. So I'm very familiar with all these issues. And what has happened over the years is there really has been a lack of resources in Indian country for enforcement of criminal laws. And so being able to enter names and so forth of missing persons on a national database is of critical importance, because it just is a situation where the tribes need all the assistance they can get from the state of Nevada and other officials in investigating these types of cases, which are many times not able to be investigated properly. So with that, I would strongly urge you to support this legislation, because I think it is extremely important. That's about all I have to say. I just think that this situation is one that really needs to be addressed, and all the resources we can provide for the tribes to investigate these cases are of critical importance.
Thank you for that.
Glad to answer any questions anyway.
Thank you for that. Next testimony, please.
Hello, my name is Misty Stewart, MISTY STEWART. Good afternoon, Chair Miller and members of the committee. My name is Misty Stewart, and I am the Outreach Coordinator for the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. In my role, I have the pleasure of partnering and working with Indigenous communities across this great state. While I get to celebrate the resiliency and growth, I also observe undeniable decades of systemic abuse and neglect that they have experienced and the generational trauma that follows. NCDSV is here today to support AB 125, as this measure is long overdue. According to the CDC, Native American women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average. Additionally, Indigenous people face higher rates of abuse and abduction. So often, missing and murdered Indigenous people do not receive the media and law enforcement attention as their white or non-Native counterparts, and are often marked incorrectly by law enforcement as runaways. The current lack of communication between tribal and non-tribal law enforcement agency only further harms missing and murdered Indigenous people, and truly puts the burden on the grieving tribal communities. Allowing all law enforcement agencies to accept reports from missing and murdered Indigenous people and entering the information into the National Crime Center and the National Missing and unidentified person system will help increase the chances of finding and solving these cases. Many families are forced to live without knowing what happens to their loved ones. And the cases have often no resolution. Unfortunately, this adds a layer of trauma for Native American families. It's time for us to band together and work towards stopping this crisis. Our Native families, friends, and community deserve the dignity of having their reports of missing and murdered people validated and taken seriously. While the 28 tribal governments across the great state do their best to solve all the crimes, I'll stop now.
Okay, thank you. And just want to remind you and everyone that you can always submit those in writing, submit your testimony in writing for the committee as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Lanahan, and I'm here on behalf of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. We just want to thank Assemblywoman Backus for bringing this bill. I do think it's extremely important to get the data into the system so that we have some baseline for us to be able to track this issue and solve it going forward. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you mind spelling your name as well for the record?
Yes, Lanahan is Lanahan, Jennifer, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. So as the chairs empty, you all can just continue to fill them. Just remember to say and spell your name for the record.
I'm Deja Lynn Davis, DejaLynneDavis. Hello, Chair Miller and members of the Judiciary. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Deja Lynn Davis, and I am a member of the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe and a player with the Pyramid Lake High School girls basketball team. My team and I are here today in support of AB 125. Throughout our season, our team has strived to bring awareness to the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people. We believe Indigenous people should have the same rights and access to justice as all Nevadans. We're asking our state legislators to help close the loopholes to access for justice for Native people. In closing this issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women, it affects me directly as I am giving testimony in honor of my mother, Amanda Davis, who was murdered in December 2020. Again, we are here in support of AB 125, and we hope that you guys will support it too.
Thank you, Deja, for your testimony and for your courage. And we are deeply sorry about your mother. Thank you. Next.
Esli Amaya, EZTLIAMAYA. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Esli Amaya, and I am the Environmental Justice Organizer with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada and the co-founder of Fifth Sun Project, here in support of Assembly Bill 125. As a local Indigenous person in Las Vegas working with Native American communities, I have my own lived experience with violence, as many other people in our communities have had. In gathering our members together and storytelling, 10 out of 10 people, all Indigenous in that circle, experience sexual violence and have had family or friends go missing or murdered. Assault on Indigenous bodies is so common yet overlooked and never properly addressed nor told to the public what this truly is, an epidemic. As we protect our children, who are our future, from living these same experiences, we need protection and justice for ourselves and our communities. Nevada has a substantial amount of extractive industries in the state, including potential lithium mining, and reports have shown that this leads to increase of missing and murdered Indigenous people. When the population grows with outsiders coming into these rural areas, Native communities, service organizations, law enforcement are not equipped to handle the sudden influx of violence that these projects could bring. This relationship is something that Indigenous people know closely, and the reason why a bill such as AB 125 is so critical, and that the reports of someone missing from a reservation or colony are accepted by all agencies and entered into the National Missing and Identified Persons Database. Indigenous women and girls are murdered at a rate 10 times higher than all other ethnicities. Murder is also recognized as the third leading cause of death for Indigenous women. We know that the outcome of a missing Indigenous person's case is often made worse by delayed response from law enforcement over questions of jurisdiction. Plan and Fifth Sum projects support this bill because of the goal to streamline agency process and outline proper communication practices in instances of missing Native community members. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people need to be addressed in both local and federal law. We encourage the members of this committee to stand with Native communities and support Assembly Bill 125. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I think a few are coming. Proceed.
Hello, my name is Teresa Melendez, and I'm with Silver State Government Relations here on behalf of the Shoshone Paiute tribes of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I'm here in support of AB 125, and it's really been, it really feels good to see so much support from the Indigenous community here today in support of this bill. We haven't had the presence that we need to have in the state legislature in the past, and it's beautiful to see the Indigenous people and the tribes stepping up and also looking to express, uplift Indigenous issues and solutions and find ways that we can co-govern the state more effectively as Indigenous, the 28 federally recognized tribes and the state and local government. We know that there's a huge disparity in justice in tribal communities with the complications of multiple levels of jurisdiction and the confusion and complications and nuances of that causes. And this is one area that has received a lot of national attention, the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people. And it's an issue that affects all of us so directly. As young people, as women in our communities, you grow up knowing that the chances of crimes against you are so much higher than other folks. And you also know that oftentimes crimes are committed in your community and nobody's ever prosecuted. And so I'm really grateful to Assemblywoman Shea Backus for taking leadership and helping to close a loophole in this one issue on missing and murdered Indigenous people, because data is important. One of the things that we know as Indigenous people, that invisibility is a form of racism. And we're often told our numbers are too small, that we're insignificant, or things are of the past and don't matter now. But these are things that are happening now. We need the data so that we can communicate with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney General's office and local law enforcement officials, and so we can hold people accountable. So this bill is really important to us. With that, in closing, I'm here in support of AB 125, and I thank you for your time. Miigwech.
Thank you.
Hama na randaluna minani anama na odina waita na kuitkar na ognabi waita. Hello everybody, my name is Randa DeLuna. I'm a Paiute from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and I'm here in support of the bill AB 125. It's really important for not only the current generation but our future generation, because I can't imagine losing my nieces and nephews, because I have no children of my own. So I can't imagine losing any of my nieces or nephews or anybody in my family and not knowing where they are. Or I didn't even know we weren't even in a database or anything else until Assemblywoman brought this to our attention. And I believe this is a really good bill and it's really important. And thank you for all who is in support of us.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tess Opferman. That's TESSOPFERMAN. I will keep my comments brief because I know there's some really important testimony that we've heard, but I do want to get on the record that all three organizations that I represent, which include the Nevada Women's Lobby, the National Association of Social Workers, and the Human Services Network, are all in full support of this bill. All three organizations represent marginalized populations throughout Nevada, and that includes indigenous people. We've heard some stats this morning. We know that crime rates are significantly higher, 10 times higher than the national average. Rates of sexual violence, human trafficking, and murder are all higher, and we need to somehow address that in our legal structure to ensure that we're following these cases, we're solving these cases, and we're working hard to protect that population. So with that, I will yield any additional time, but I did want to be on the record for all three organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of AB 125? Deja, can you have your teammates stand up again, please? If you're one of Deja's teammates, will you stand up? Because we will document you all in support of the bill, if you like, so we can document the numbers. And Coach. Thank you all so much for being present today. Thank you so much. With that, I will go ahead and open.
Aloha o. Aloha o hau'ominani. My name is Kara Kailani John. I am from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. I'm 9 years old.
Honey, do you want to tell us? Okay.
Good morning, Hama na Rabanigo Minania, no Reno Sparks Indian Colony, no Kuyuitakara. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robin Eagle, and I represent the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. I have brought my Unity Youth membership here today, Kariana being the youngest of our Native American group. So I'm so proud of her to be at the table. It is very important to have our youth sit in these assembly bills to see what we're doing. You know, they are not our futures of tomorrow, they're our leaders of today. As we get through it this morning, I'm so proud to have Pyramid Lake here by our side as well as we collaborate to move forward to make awareness in our community. These young individuals serve as a governing body just like the tribal council does within their community. So I'm very proud that they can sit here even if they don't have words to say. These tears are very powerful and they really hold it sacred to them. Thank you for having us in your attendance because they will go away and walk away today knowing whether the support is there or isn't, it's still important for them to be at the table. I want to thank you guys again for listening to us. Having my parents that had come with us today, also a grandmother who got up at 6:30 this morning to bring them here today, and having that issue at the table, we always talk about if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So today, thank you so much for having us at the table, letting us hear your side, letting us hear everybody's testimony, and everybody have safe travels. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being so brave. Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City? All right, not seeing anyone, we will open up the phone lines. Broadcasting.
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 125, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you'd like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 125, please press star 9 now.
Hi, good morning. This is Marla McDade Williams, MARLA-MC, capital DADEWILLIAMS. I'm a member of the Smoke Tribe of Western Shoshone. I grew up on the South Fork Indian Reservation in Elko County, and I just want to go on record in support of AB 125. I appreciate Assemblywoman Backus bringing this measure, and I think it's another testament to how important it is to have representation in this body. The cross-jurisdictional issues between states, tribes, and the federal government make solving crimes and having access to systems very difficult. I support the training requirements to help open the lines of communication between law enforcement, and thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Thalia Marin, capital THALIA, capital MARIN. I am with the Timoke Western Shoshone Tribe, and I am in support of the AB 125 bill. I apologize. Whew, let me take a breath. I am actually the director of a Shoshone women group here in Elko, Nevada, and we are an MMIW/P awareness group, and we do support the training part of the bill. And currently we are working on a tribal community response plan, missing and murdered individuals. Hopefully we could get it out to all 28 tribes in Nevada, and their tribal councils would be able to adopt it. And also, everybody's pretty much spoke of everything that has been covered, but jurisdiction is also important. And we have 28 tribes, all the same struggles, but yet are so different in each reservation and each colony. So this is a very important issue. Thank you, Thea Buckus, for moving forward with this bill. And again, I am in the support of the bill. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, thank you, Chair and Committee, for the opportunity to speak today. Hamuyu Pisha Awamua No Mashina Menina. Hello, my name is James Phoenix. I am the chairman of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe in Northern Nevada. I'm also a retired police officer, Reno PD, and Lieutenant Colonel of the Nevada Army National Guard. I support AB 125. Why? To bring awareness and maintain ongoing communications relating to missing and murdered Indigenous persons between law enforcement agencies, both state, federal, tribal, local. Make agencies aware of the ongoing issues in Indian country and for Native American that resides in the urban areas as well, not just for here in the great state of Nevada, but across the nation. To require Nevada Post to adopt certain training and bring awareness related to missing, murdered Indigenous persons, and understand the jurisdiction issues and reporting, and find a way forward and find a solution to close the gap in these communications, and turn this law into action so we can have these things happen. This request is in addition to a missing person report in general that is entered into NCIC. The MMIP database logs cases of all genders and ages from 1900 to present. Therefore, please take the time to commit to our Native American population here in the Great Basin so that it does not go unnoticed or become less of a priority. As you have heard, sensitive and very important testimony today, this is very sensitive to our people. Your commitment to our people today in accepting this bill and approving it would be appreciated. In closing, I want to thank the committee members in support of AB 125 proposed by Assemblywoman Backus. Without her, we would still be just a talk and not following it through. Thank you for your time. Respectfully submitted, James Phoenix.
Hello. Thank you, Chair Miller and members of the committee. My name is Amber Falgout. That is spelled AMBERFALGOUT, and I am the Northern Nevada Manager with Battle-Born Progress. We are in strong support of Assembly Bill 125 and are encouraged to see our legislature taking action to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women in our country and our state. I personally have been married into an Indigenous family for a number of years, and I am ecstatic to see that this bill is moving forward. I have seen the impact of this crisis on my in-laws and my family members. We can no longer allow this crisis to go unreported and unaddressed, and we must no longer put the burden of investigating these cases on grieving families and communities. Indigenous women across our state and country are far more likely to be victims of violence, and with this bill, our state will finally address this crisis with the focus that these women deserve. Thank you so much to Assemblywoman Bacchus for introducing this bill. Have a wonderful day.
Hello, my name is Nizhoni Whitehat. For the record, that's spelled Nizhoni, Whitehat, Widehat. I am Navajo, Rosebud Lakota, and enrolled member of the Northern Arapaho Tribe of Wind River Reservation. I'm also the Northern Community Organizer for Native Voters Alliance Nevada. I'd like to thank Assemblywoman Bacchus for proposing this bill. It's very important, however gravely concerning, that it needs to be stated so plainly in the first place. The necessity of tribal liaisons and involvement of non-governmental agencies can be the key factor in bringing home our missing relatives. This bill opens the line of communication and makes it hard to misunderstand what role law enforcement plays, as well as holding them accountable. Seeing accountability and transparency helps to unease my community experiences with government agencies. I encourage this community to pass this bill to better serve my people and to pave the way for future infrastructure to protect other communities in this state. Thank you to all the relatives who have come to support and speak on this bill. It takes a great strength to do this, and to bring up our trauma in order to fight this fight is difficult. Please find time to nurture yourselves. Yeah, thank you.
Callers, if you have recently joined and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 125, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you are unmuted on our end. Caller with the last 3 digits, 665, you are unmuted and may begin.
Good morning. This is Stacy Monteith. I'm a citizen of the Walker River Paiute Nation, and I urgently ask that you support AB 125. Thank you.
Chair, the public line is open. There are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Thank you so much, Broadcasting. With that, we will go ahead and close the testimony in support of AB 125, and I will open it up for anyone in opposition of Assembly Bill 125.
Good morning, Chair Bell and members of the committee. My name is Greg Herrera, G-R-E-G, last of Herrera, H-E-R-R-E-R-A. I'm with R&R Partners and representing currently the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association today. We are opposed to AB 125 only as written today. We want to thank Assemblywoman Backus for bringing this legislation forward, and her knowledge and passion in this topic was readily apparent and well respected when speaking upon immediately speaking with her. We're committed to continue working with her to identify and close any gaps that we have or may have in Nevada for reporting missing and Indigenous persons. As a former investigator, I know how important it is to make sure that these cases are entered immediately into NCIC for success. And Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I have to give a shout out to the girls Premier League basketball team, as they just secured their first state championship in a while, so we're all proud of them. So.
Good morning, Chair Miller, members of Assembly Judiciary. My name is Beth Schmidt. I'm the Director of Intergovernmental for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We too are in opposition to the bill as submitted pursuant to committee rules. But let me be clear, we support timely reports being taken and NCIC entries being completed for missing Indigenous persons. Our concerns with the bill as written are technical reporting issues regarding local law enforcement compliance with federal law and tribal sovereignty. We look forward to working with Assemblywoman Backus.
Good morning, Chair Miller. Good morning, members of the committee. Jason Walker, Jasonwalker, Washington County Sheriff's Office. I echo the words of my colleagues. Thank you, Assemblywoman Backus, for bringing the bill forward. It is important, soft opposition at this point, just as introduced. Hopeful that conversations will continue so that we can move to a position of support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition of AB 125? Not seeing anyone broadcasting. Is there anyone on the lines?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 125, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 125, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you for that. Then I will open it up for testimony in neutral for Assembly Bill 125. If there's anyone that in Carson City that would like to testify in neutral?
Good morning, Ryan Miller, RyanMiller for the Nevada Department of Public Safety Investigation Division. We are neutral, testifying neutral as it relates to this bill. Just feel that we need to just highlight a couple of factors that I think have already been hit upon as it relates to jurisdiction. And I'm not an expert by any means in tribal law. As we've heard, it's a complex issue. But as I understand it, as it comes to the investigation part, we should certainly take the reports just like we would under the current law for anybody that reports. But in terms of the jurisdiction in the investigation, if it came to us, we would ultimately, if it was on tribal land and involved an Indigenous person, then we would take that report, basically enter it, do a courtesy report, and then send it to the agency that has jurisdiction, which in that instance would either be tribal police, BIA, or the FBI. Alternatively, the laws surrounding state law enforcement are pretty defined, and as it relates to the investigation division and NRS 480-460, as it relates to these types of things, we have to have a request from the local jurisdiction or the sheriff or chief to conduct an investigation. So if it was determined that the state or locals had investigative authority, we could still take the report, but ultimately we'd be doing a courtesy report for the locals unless they requested us to conduct the investigation. And then lastly, as it relates to the communication, we can certainly have that communication, ongoing communication, but if we're not conducting the investigation, we may or may not have any information as it relates to those cases unless that's provided to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral of AB 125? Broadcasting, is there anyone on the phones?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 125, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will welcome Assemblywoman Backus back up to make some final remarks.
I just want to thank everybody for their time making their way to Carson City or appearing by phone. I know the weather was pretty rough, but I feel I can't go without saying this. Obviously, this bill is being brought for the generations that preceded me and those that will follow. And I will always work with people to make sure we have the best bill. It is a crisis that needs to be addressed, and I'm just thanking this committee for the time today to listen to the presentation, listen to our speakers both in support and opposition, and I would ask for the support to pass Assembly Bill 125. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. And with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 125. Our last order of business today is public comment. Again, public comment is not to make comments on bills that have been heard this morning, but on other issues that are under the purview of this committee. Again, everyone will have up to 2 minutes to make public comment. With that, I would like to open it up to anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment. Not seeing anyone here approaching Carson City. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the lines?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers choosing to participate at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just
please proceed.
One person has just entered the queue.
Okay, thank you.
Anne Marie Grant, ANNEMARIEGRANT. My brother was murdered by Reno Police and Washoe County Sheriff's Office during a mental health crisis, hogtied and asphyxiated to death. I just want to send I really give it to the young women who showed up today. Your voice is strong. Continue to use it. You are being heard. And I would just like to remember the Native lives who have been killed by police in Nevada. Lloyd Napick, 10/27/18. Johnny Bonta, 10/22/17. Rex Vance Wilson, 10/12/2016. Marcus Lee, 12/16/2012. Nigel Flores, 7/1/2005, Kyle Melendez, 3/16/2005, and Norman Manny Bonney Jr., 7/15/2004. I'd just like to remind the committee members that if law enforcement opposes the bill, it's because it promotes transparency and accountability, and you all should support it. Thank you.
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no other callers choosing to participate at this time.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I will go ahead and close public comment. And with that, just want to thank all the members and everyone here in Carson City that participated today. This is the end of our business for this committee meeting. So I will see you all back at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.